talk to you about a little bit about conceptual assessment, because we were just talking about this. Conceptual assessment to me is where we're looking at the flow between the modes of representation, where we see that connection. And we were just talking about, so how do we measure that? The first, I don't have these in order actually, do I? The first one I was going to have you look at is the one that is on page 4. That's a template that you are welcome to have these electronically if you want to type in it. Great. The idea of an observation checklist. Now, I learned this from, there's a woman named Kathy Richardson who's created a series of assessments for basically the K2 level called Assessing Math Concepts. And she uses the language IPA, I meaning students who need instruction, P meaning students who need practice, and A meaning students who are ready to apply it. Okay, so that's the language. That's where I learned that. I didn't come up with that. I learned it from her, but I like it, so I use it all the time. You can change these letters to be whatever you want, but basically those 3 levels. I kids are pretty easy to spot. They don't know what they're doing. They need you, okay? A kids are pretty easy to spot. They totally know what they're doing. Everybody else is a P. Now there are varying degrees of P, but basically what we're saying is they're not done, but they're not clueless. They need some work. They need a little guided conversation with you. They just need some practice doing something, but they're not done. Question?
Okay, I see on the very front of this
Oh
packet.
yeah, we're gonna go over that one too. I just didn't get to that one yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering which one's going to align more with Wake Park grades so that I can start giving my students a perspective.
I think that, well, I'll show you.
Okay.
Okay. Park has a lot of points with, right or wrong. Okay. This is not, Park can't do this because it's observational. But we should, because this will get us ready for Park. Because when we're trying to look at, Park is struggling with conceptual assessment. I think that's where the challenges are. It's a lot of click, drag, build.
Yeah.
With that's what, or drop down menus, or different representations. But I think that's the hardest one for them to measure, where we can do it a lot easier in the classroom. And anything they're going to put on with a click, drag, build with a virtual tool, part of it is, have they done it with a tactile tool? Kids can easily use virtual tools if they've done things in the classroom with tactile tools. We've noticed they're digital natives. They have so much easier time using the digital manipulatives than we do. But they don't know how to use the digitals if they've never done the tactiles. That's where the struggle comes into play. If they've never held blocks or built models, they struggle with the digital. So, yes, I want to teach kids how to use the digital tools, but I think I first want to start with the tactile tools because it's really more concrete for them. The digital is a little bit it's another layer of abstraction. The other thing that I find interesting is that any time you use a tool, it's abstract because that tool is standing for something. It's a manipulative that's supposed to represent something else. So that's abstract. And there are people, we talk about this, like the kids starts in kindergarten where we say, we're going to count how many bears are in the cave. So pretend these Unifix cubes are bears. And they're like, they're not bears, they're cubes. And that's where they are. We have people who move on from there and they still think that way, that I don't get how this stands for that. And they get to 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade where they don't understand the manipulative because they don't really get how that manipulative is standing for a quantity. Base 10 blocks are a perfect example of this. Kids have used base 10 blocks for years to try to understand the base 10 system. What we're realizing is that they can only understand base 10 blocks if they understand the base 10 system. Because base 10 blocks cannot be broken apart and put together. They're not manipulating the tool. They're using the tool to represent an idea. So in K2, I say I wouldn't use base 10 blocks. I would use Unifix cube trains or counters or 10 frames because they can actually manipulate those to learn the system. And then the base 10 blocks are awesome for representing the system. But we have them coming to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade and we say build it with blocks. They don't get the base 10 block. They don't see the system. they don't understand one of the big ideas of multiplicative comparison, that 10 times as much. So therefore, they don't understand our system. And that's learned in 4th grade. So we're seeing that the tool that they use, it's only as good as their experience with it. And the other thing I noticed, we have smart boards now in classrooms. Smart boards are wonderful, but their virtual manipulatives are only manipulatives for the person who gets to manipulate it. So for everybody else, it's a visual, okay? I love the smart board to show something, but while I'm showing it, I want everyone else to have the tactile tools with them and their buddy. And I say that because I don't want each kid to have their own, and they're not going to talk about it with anybody and practice the language and construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. I don't want to have a set for every kid. I want to have a set for every pair. And while I'm up here, or while I send kids up there to demo something, everybody else can touch the tactile tool. So I don't think virtual tools are going to take the place of tactile tools. I don't think they should. Now, unless every kid's going to have an iPad and do it, and I still don't think that's going to do it for them. I think they need to, not that you can't have that. There's some cool things on iPads, but there are limitations too. So you can't do the 3D-ness on a flat. It's hard. They don't see the 3 dimensions. It's very hard. So when we're looking at observation, I think this is going to lead us to success on Park. I don't want to get rid of this just because Park can't use it. And that's one of my concerns, is that, well, we want to mirror Park, but we want to get ready for Park in the right way.
Is 3 levels enough?
I think, you make, that's why we leave room for comments. I think it is, because when I'm trying to group kids, I have, I might say P+, P-.
Okay.
You can make notes to yourself. The more levels you have, the more to keep track of.
Right.
I'm trying to keep it simple.
And then,
But you can
would this
adapt
be,
it.
this is the date I assessed this?
I would date it as I
date
see it, and then
2,
it changes, yeah.
And then this would be objective 1, reassessing it, like at the next stage, or it's a check mark, like here on this date, I saw them at I saw them at P, I saw them at A, and then this is a new objective 1, 2, 3,
Different
4?
people use it differently.
Okay.
So I like dating it, because then I can use the same paper over and over again, see the progress all on one paper. Personally, I would love it electronically, where I could just have it in my,
Yeah, is there a
tablet.
tool that does that currently?
We need an app for that, don't we?
Is there
Yes.
Well,
a
that's-
lesson
that's-
tool, something like that?
I wonder, I don't know.
That's been a
There are-
frustrating part of me trying to incorporate this into my classroom. I don't want to have to write on
Have the
paper
papers.
and then transfer it, because that's time I could have been spending
I'm
reading
not
about
tech
our
savvy
lesson.
enough to make apps, but I really
Yeah.
should find someone who is, and then we should just be rich and famous, right? 'Cause,
Yeah.
Well,
I think every teacher would go for
I know
that.
there's a lesson study tool, but I don't know whether that can be adapted to.
I wonder. Yeah. That's a good question. I'm not tech smart enough to know, but I know somebody who is smart. I probably smart.
That would be fantastic.
We need a
if we
smart
could
person who
ask
can
them.
make an app for us, right?
Yeah.
I'll work on this.
Thank you. I appreciate
Okay.
it.
In your spare time, Jane.
I'll work on it. We'll work on this. Somebody smart will make us an app, and we'll be all famous. Okay? Can you do this? Can you make an app?
Yes.
Oh. They're pointing at you. They said you can make an app.
It's a little more involved.
We need someone, okay, well, I'll find some. You have friends who can make an app? Okay, we'll talk. We'll cut you in on it. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. We're gonna be rich and famous, Nah. Okay, so I think observation is a really big piece of this. I think, and I do think that Park, I wish they could incorporate it. I think at the K2 level, we're waiting to see whether, they've revealed nothing about K2. They're working on stuff. I hope they're looking at observation tools. What's interesting to me is that the state just came up with this kids assessment. Well, they didn't just, but it's being broadened for kindergarten, and it's a totally observational assessment. So I'm wondering how that's going to come into play. It's all of kindergarten, not just math. But have you heard of the kids assessment?
No,
It's
learning
kind of
now.
below
Would a
the-
teacher do that on their own student? So if my teacher, my job is based on my assessment, why would a teacher
Well, the kids
ever mark
assessment-
their kid?
No.
It's a
Okay.
growth, though. I mean, you want to see growth.
Yeah.
And, you can always go into different people's classrooms and other people can come in and do it too. I mean, I don't know. we're not sure how it's gonna be used.
Okay.
I don't know if it's gonna be for the evaluation.
Oh,
or if
No,
it's
I
just
was
a
gonna say,
tool.
it was really designed as a diagnostic
Right.
tool
Okay.
to look at developmental.
Right.
But I love the fact that it's observational, because
Yes.
I think we need more observation. I think we are professionals, and that's why I don't think teachers are ever gonna be replaced by computers. You watch, and you know what you're looking for. So your observation is a valid form of assessment. We need to be treated like professionals, and some person off the street does not know what to look for. I'm sorry, but they don't. They don't know what they're viewing. Okay, so that's one kind of an assessment tool that I think is valid. The checklist, this is more of a global one, and I like this one. This is on page, I think it's 2 and 3. 2 has the one with 6 modes, and 3 has the one with 5 modes. 5 modes is what they originally came up with. We add in the table at the middle school. Pretty much 4th grade on up, they start to use tables. And I like having that added on as a possible way to check things. What we do with this is we list the students down the side and whatever kind of ideas we're asking them to represent with multiple modes. And I just go through and circle or highlight which modes do I see them using. I like it to be natural. I don't want to say to them, now I want to see you use a table, because then that's not natural. I want to see, what do you naturally do without my prompting? However, there are times where we need to say, put up a reminder and say, I love blowing up that graphic of the, 5 or 6 modes, putting it on a poster and sticking it on the wall. Because when we talk about practice number 1, persevering, a lot of times they'll say, I don't get it. What don't you get? It. Okay, well, how can you get it? They'll say, I don't know. I love saying, okay, well, there's 6 modalities you can pick from. Which one would you like to start with? I'm not gonna tell you, why don't you make a picture? I want you to think of that. That's me persevering for you, okay? No, I'm saying, which one of those would you like to start with? Which one are you most comfortable with? Because we learn differently. So the kid who needs the tactile tool should be able to get up, walk across the room, grab the tool, right? And use it. And say, I chose this tool because it fits this, and this is why, and this is a good, this is why this is a good tool to use. That's practice 5. Versus the kid who, you have to tell them, no, we would not use a protractor to measure the area, of the triangle. That's not the right, tool to use. But I like it. It's cool. Not the best tool to use. I guess you could measure the length using the straight side of it, but if you have a circular protractor, not the right tool at all, And I think circular protractors are going to be more competent, too. Especially if 4th grade has this expectation that they learn degrees as part of a circle. I want to see more circular protractors in 4th grade classrooms.
What does the globe stand for them?
The globe is the real world.
Real world.
I should tell you, we should have the key at the bottom.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
put a key there.
Yeah.
And I do have a key at the ones I've made, like
You
the
have
real
a
ones.
key on there, it's just so small,
Oh,
some of it I'm
okay.
struggling to see.
Oh, let me tell you what they are. So the hand is the manipulative. Our most handy manipulative is our hand, right? The drawing is with the paintbrush.
We thought it was a knife.
Oh,
Oh.
I thought it was a pen.
Our pen. Maybe it's like a.
I got it.
Yeah, we
fancy-
get it.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. The written symbols is the number sign. The language is the speech bubble. We used to have a mouth, and it didn't work for me. It looked like it was just creepy mouth. And then the table is obviously tables and charts, and then the real world is the world. It does help to know what they mean. Yeah. I probably should have put that on the bottom. That's okay. You can laugh at me. And the 5 just takes out the table because sometimes it doesn't seem appropriate to use a table.
What does the real world modality mean?
Connecting to the real world. Like, I want to see kids, when we have, if I give you the equation, can you come up with a real world story where that equation will fit? That's fascinating to me that they don't know that. I have a niece who actually has graduated high school, but 3 years ago she came to stay with us for her spring break, and she cracked me up. She said, she was talking about my job, or she goes, I hate math because I really don't understand those graphy thingies, is what she said. I said, yeah. I said, you mean like graphing lines? And she said, yeah, I don't understand why we have to graph equations and stuff. And I said, well, you do know that the graph of a line is just showing change over time. And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, a graph like this. What's going on? And she says, it's a going down graph. I'm like, that's well on so many levels. Is it an increase or a decrease? And she says, it's a decrease. I said, okay, so what would the slope be? Positive or negative? Oh, negative. I'm like, yeah, because when things go down, they decrease negative. We see the connection between those. It's a negative slope because it's decreasing. When in the world would you like to see a decrease? And she said, the number of times my mom grounds me in mom because her mom. And I said, okay. I was thinking about my weight, but whatever, you know. Okay.
I was
So,
thinking gas prices.
gas prices, I would like them to take, yes, we would like to see a slope like that. I said, when would you like to see a graph like this? And she says, oh, my bank account. I said, why? She goes, because I would like it to increase. And I said, well, what would you like that slope to be? She said, well, positive. I said, okay, yeah, but what kind of a slope? Would you like it to be like a gradual slope or a steep slope? She said, steep, really steep slope. So I said, what kind of a number would that be? Would it be a fraction or a whole number? She said, oh, a really big whole number. I was like, yes, that's linear equations and graphing in a nutshell. She goes, no, if someone explained that to me, I wouldn't hate this so much. Like, that's what it is. That's the point, is to connect it to the world. I found it sad that she never knew why she was graphing. Or why do we graph systems? I loved asking kids that question. Why do we graph systems of equations? To solve problems, you know? They do it, they find the solution, but they don't think about what real world situations, you know, you're comparing two relationships and seeing where do those interact, where do those intersect, where do those two relationships meet, what do they have in common? There's a point to doing what we do. What makes me sad is that they don't know the point.
Paradigm shift.
It is a huge paradigm shift.
Well, it's not that, for teachers and for students. As a teacher, we fall into I'll just hear, this is how you do it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
You know why? Because we have a test to take that they
Right.
have to get the answers right on, because that's my performance data. And if they don't get it right, I look bad. That's where it is right now. And that's sad. And that's why I'm thinking, I don't want us stressing about evaluations and value added and all that, because it's really not going to change it. The instruction that you have in the classroom is what's going to determine your evaluation, because your data is going to be, one's causal, one's effect. The effect is going to be positive if the cause is good. So I know it's stressful because it's all stressful.
It is.
But really, the assessment data doesn't impact nearly as much as what they see in the classroom. Now what worries me is, do they know what to look for as they're coming into the classroom? That's the part that's why on the model curriculum units, we put the 8 practices in each unit, and we have examples of what they look like. I felt very strongly about that box, because that's not just for teachers. That is for administrators who come in and observe in your classroom. What should I be looking for? I should see kids talking about this. I should watch kids making models. Like, they need to know that those are the things we should see. And I would, whenever they're going to do the evaluation, I'd give them that front page of that unit and say, this is the unit I'm in, these are the 8 mathematical practices, here's some examples of what you might see.
In terms of from the state, are there going to be, so they're changing how our observations are going to work in our evaluation. Will they change then how the administrators are assessing us? Because I know in our district, I got evaluated by the same administrator continually coming in, and I didn't feel there was any inter-rater reliability in that, because I think that people from different perspectives would have seen what I did differently. So a math specialist came in to observe me, and she felt like I was strong in mathematical content, but I would have liked to have heard the perspective from somebody that had a special ed background maybe, or a language arts background, and could tell me if I'm correctly incorporating those pieces into my lesson.
I think that's a really good point. I think, unfortunately, we are a local control state. So
Yeah.
there's only so much the state controls.
Okay.
I know that I wrote an Administrator Academy with one of my colleagues about the connection between the Common Core and the Danielson Framework and RTI, because I think the Danielson Framework is really what the administrators were learning about, and they, unfortunately, the training that they went through for the Danielson Framework really didn't give them guidance on the Common Core. It wasn't mentioned until Module 4 or 5, I believe, and basically what it says was that evaluators must be well versed in the Common Core. They didn't tell them how they were going to be well versed or who's going to verse them well. They just said they should be. And I think there's a lot there. And there was a lot that they had to do in that training. So I'm not saying that the training was bad. I'm saying that there's more training that
And how
needs to
can
come.
one adult be responsible for all of that content? I don't think.
That is another reason why, on these model units, that's to support them as well.